The biggest talking point for me that comes out of this weekend for Xfinity is actually comments that came out from Kyle Larson today on Kevin Harvick's Happy Hour podcast, and basically telling Harvick that he runs these races to embarrass the competition and NASCAR to an extent, because they're only allowed to do 5 of these races a year now. And he went on to talk about how the drivers in the series, and to his credit, to be fair, this I think is a true sentiment for many of them, they enjoy having drivers like him in the field on Saturdays on occasion, because it allows them to measure themselves against the Cup champion and Cup talent. We know where I stand on this issue, Brandon. I know where you stand on the issue. I know where Brock Beard stands on the issue. But what's your reaction to Kyle Larson's comments saying that the primary reason he does these races is to embarrass the competition and in some ways embarrass the sport?
That's absolutely unhinged to me. That's just so wild that he would go on. Yeah, he has the right to.
You got to give him points for honesty, at least, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. But I don't sway yay or nay in his comments, but I just think it's unhinged to me that Kyle would go on Happy Harvick.
Happy Hour. Yeah.
Harvick's Happy Hour. Yeah. I'm sorry, Kevin. Kevin Harvick's Happy Hour, which is a NASCAR on Fox program, that runs on FS1 and also on all your podcasting platforms, free plug. But yeah, I'm just absolutely shocked that he would just be so open and say that. Driver to driver, I guess it's a little more, free flowing. But again, he knows where his audience is. He knows who's listening. So, good on him for being open and honest. But yeah, it's. I don't want to step my boundaries too far here, but it is wild. He's got there's some truth to it though. Making fun of NASCAR, just saying that your talent in the Xfinity Series is not as strong as you think it is. What's his point he's trying to make here? Or that you're allowing me to run 5 races is silly? Or what do you think he's trying to say here with this statement?
That's a good question. I think that.
Or that the Xfinity Series is the clearly better series, overall, and
well, there's that argument too. I think in some ways the quality of people have said that. Going back to our open segment, the discussion is some people are just saying put big horsepower in the Xfinity Series car, and boom, you've got your solution there.
Yeah, the Cup car.
Yeah,
I've been saying that for a couple of years now.
Yeah, exactly right. I like what Brock Beard, my editor-in-chief over at lastcar.info tweeted. He quoted the Harvick Happy Hour tweet and said, "I appreciate his honesty, and I'll meet it with the same. Playoff caliber Cup guys running Xfinity and truck races is poor sportsmanship. If the objective is to humble Xfinity and truck drivers, put them in some Cup races and show them how tough the big show truly is, a la what Jesse Love did this weekend, perhaps you could say." Now, I think the counter to that fans would come back with, who are defending the bushwhacking argument, is that in this charter era especially, it is more difficult than ever for teams to run an open car. And so it's tough to really ask race teams to open up their pocketbooks and at least more than a couple of times a year allow these Xfinity drivers to run the Cup races. Perhaps it's more financially feasible for Kyle Larson or Kyle Busch or, whoever decides to do it that weekend to drop down to the lower series and kind of be the professor for all the students in class, so to speak, the Xfinity and Truck Series regulars. But again, it leads to moments like this where this is 5 playoff points that could have gone to Carson Kvapil or Justin Allgaier or series regular that just don't exist now. they straight up don't exist because a Cup Series driver not running for series points was standing in their way and won the race instead. So
in a way, it's like not actually running a full season. It's not like running a full season championship where all the points you have available don't all get distributed.
Yeah, and it's playing a spoiler argument now, because I think the amount of playoff points that the field collectively has is now less than it would be if you do the mathematics and tally up how many races we have here, because a Cup driver won this race, so no points are awarded now. So again, I feel like I have always been of the mindset that either we let them run wild like we did in the mid to late 2000s. And
at the John Deere, whatever it was, that was your first ever race.
Samstown 300. Yeah. Las Vegas. Again, I have a photographic memory of 2007. 26 Cup regulars, 26 and a half, because Regan Smith was in the race as well. He was splitting the 01 with Mark Martin that year. But yeah, 26 and a half Cup drivers, when you think about it, in a field of 43. And again, I think I can acknowledge that it's better than it was. We're never going to go back to those days, I don't think. But I feel like at a certain point, that's always what my mentality has been. Either let them say, okay, I'm going to go all in for a championship, or ban them outright. And I think, and Josh Birch has been making this argument on this show for years. I think Brock wrote that op-ed a couple of years ago. I think maybe the time has come to consider an outright ban. And I am of the mindset, and I'm even going to be a little bit harsher than Brock is. I don't care if you are a Cup champion like Kyle Larson or a multi-time Cup champion like Kyle Busch. I don't care if you're making your Cup Series debut at the Daytona 500. If you are running for Cup points, I don't want you in the Xfinity Series. I don't want you in the Truck Series.
Yeah.
Now, I understand that, people make the argument about drivers gaining experience and things like that. And, the Xfinity drivers themselves say they enjoy having the Cup guys in the field. But I just go back to, again, since people seem to like stick and ball sports comparisons these days, how many NBA players, NBA superstars do you see dropping down to the G League? And I'll give the what's the word I'm looking for? The concession. I almost said confession there. I'll give the concession that there are some two-way players, that bounce back and forth, like Bronny James, for example, probably the most famous one doing it this year. Bounce back and forth between the G League team and the NBA team. But, you're not going to see LeBron James go play for the South Bay Lakers, or, a superstar like that drop down to their G League affiliate just, for court time, so to speak, or, to humble the young guys or embarrass them, to use the word that Kyle Larson used.
Yeah.
You don't see, superstars in Major League Baseball drop down to their AA affiliate, aside from, rare rehab sort of situations like that. And even then, I've always questioned, like Bryce Harper came back from one a couple of years ago and like hit 2 home runs. And I'm like, okay, this guy seems ready to come back now. What are we doing here? And if you really want a motorsports comparison, it doesn't matter if you're Lewis Hamilton or Gabriel Bortoleto, who's a rookie this year. You're not going to see them in any F2 races later this season, or F3 races later this season. You're not going to see Scott Dixon or Alex Palou running any Indy Next races this year.
Or even Christian Lundgaard.
Yeah, or Christian Lundgaard or anybody.
Yeah.
I cannot think of any series or any sport really where the practice of major leaguers, guys at the top level, top echelon of the sport, so frequently run lower divisions. This and it's not like it's just a motorsports thing. It's really, as far as I can figure, only NASCAR where this is such a common practice and such a hotly debated practice. It's something that would be seen as absurd anywhere else, but only in NASCAR do we have these arguments. And I understand that, there are some individual characteristics of our sport that make it make sense in some ways, but it still doesn't make any sense to me in other ways here. And I think, again, it just continues to take a spot in the field, take spotlight off of the series regulars, or take a spot in the field from a driver who would otherwise be in that car. And I know that, you're going to make the argument that the Hendrick 17 is an all-star car. I don't know. Raja Caruth got a couple starts in that car. Boris Said came back out in that car to run Sonoma last year. It hasn't exclusively been used for Hendrick's Cup Series lineup. So I don't know. I think we're at a point now where we've seen the Hendrick all-star car come back here. I think if anything, we're seeing more drivers continue to push the limits here of this 5-race cap. And I don't know, it's just always this time of year when we see Cup drivers using up their starts, and then we have to come on the Encore show and try to
talk about them.
Kyle Larson won an Xfinity race. Kyle Busch won a truck race. What more can you say about that at this point? Because I feel like I don't go quite as far as Brock to say they're start and win drivers. I think there have been instances where, Xfinity, like what Chandler Smith did this weekend, for example. I mean, it happens from time to time, and give credit where it's due to the regulars when they're able to beat the Cup guys. Like Brandon Jones did that last week at Darlington. I think it does say a lot about the regulars when they can do that. But then you have something like this. Like, imagine we could be talking about Carson Kvapil pulling into victory lane already with Junior Motorsports, and we can't, because Kyle Larson just absolutely dominated a race that, quite frankly, he should have dominated. And it makes
Yeah.
it hard to come up with storylines to come out of that because, what was expected is the reality here.
I have noticed one thing. I think the NASCAR Xfinity Series possibly has soft dropped the "names are made here" slogan from years past. Have you seen that around this year? I think they might have just quietly dropped that because they realized that that doesn't really apply like it may have once for just a little while. And also, thank you, Joe, for another comment. But also, I think Kyle Larson is also like really used to going into fields where he schools the field. Like he has a week full of dirt lined up all the time, and so like what's another series? What's another junior series to come in and take care of the field? What difference does it make to him?
Well, and this is the other counter argument. And Joe, bringing it up here, Xfinity and Truck Racing, mostly the same track as the Cup Series. I don't see the argument that star power is needed, and that's really the only times you see it nowadays. Because again, just for logistics of like Milwaukee 2007, again, for example, Cup drivers flying back between Sonoma and Milwaukee, and Denny Hamlin missing the start of the race, and then replacing Eric Almirola in the middle of the race. Like, of course, we're never going to see that again, just because, why would you use one of your 5 starts at a race where you have to go through all that trouble of making the nearly 2,000-mile trip back and forth? And these guys aren't running for points. They're not running for championships anymore. So I get all of that. But, again, I look at the situation that we have here, making the argument that you need the Cup drivers in the field to draw interest when, first of all, I think the diehards are going to be at the races the entire weekend, regardless here. I think if anything, that argument holds more weight at standalone races, which again, I just made the point of why it doesn't make as much logistical sense to be a bushwhacker at those races anymore. But I will say this much, like what Kyle Larson does, racing dirt on weekdays and bringing some star power to local dirt tracks, I've got no problem with that. I think that's great. I think what Kevin Harvick did at Sonoma in 2017 and Kern in 2018, running what's now an ARCA West race. That's not a national touring series. That's not something that is on national television every single week. That's a series that needs more spotlight and attention. And Will Rogers certainly got that attention in 17 and 18. I'm not saying he needs to go run as many races as possible per year, but I think giving Cup drivers one race per year that they could do, I would be open to that idea. I have no problem with that whatsoever. It's the National Touring Series, Trucks and Xfinity, that are on TV every week, that are frequently at the same tracks as companion races to the Cup Series. I don't really buy the argument that you need to have Kyle Larson stinking up the show in a Hendrick Motorsports car, or Kyle Busch, way back when in a Gibbs car, winning almost every other race that he does. I don't buy the argument that puts more fans in the seats, or maybe it puts more sponsors on the race cars. And again, there's business aspects to that as well. But I just think in a perfect world, Cup Series drivers should focus on the Cup Series only. I don't think it's necessary to have them doing this in Trucks and Xfinity, even as little as 5 times a year. They simply don't need to be there, in my opinion.
Another good example would be Dale Jr. Like you're crazy if you think Dale Jr. in a Cars Tour race at Florence or somewhere is not a good idea. Showing up in that. Yeah. But at the same token, Cars Tour is about to get get an FS1 appearance here soon. So in a way, it has a potential of becoming a national thing, but we're still in the baby stages of that. But the amount of haulers my wife and I saw in Darlington just for Dale Jr. Cars Tour apparel, like own hauler designated for it. And yeah, it's Dale Jr. is always big business, but but that's just another example I think of on the regional side of it's a good thing when Kevin and Keelan are in an event,
Yeah, and again, like Junior's Xfinity starts, he's not a full-time Cup driver anymore. Yeah. No problem
Casey
with
Kane at Rockingham this Saturday.
Casey, so great to see Casey Kane back. Mm-hmm. They get much more feasible to do that. I say that Casey Mears is doing it in Cup right now, but he's in one of the only open cars in the field, one of the least funded cars in the field. Casey Kane's going to have, I think, a much better time running Xfinity than he is trying to put together a Cup deal like that. But Casey Mears is forging his own path, and good for him as well. Good to see him back out there.
He's getting those 500 starts.
Yeah, exactly. again, like Justin Allgaier, for example, AJ Allmendinger. I know he's back in Cup now, but I have no problem with guys going back down to reinvent their careers. Kyle Busch wants to be the first to win titles in all 3 series. If Kyle Busch said, I'm not going to run any Cup races this year, at least not for points, I'm going to go all in on trucks, I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah.
In fact, I welcome it. I would love to see if his dominance could be sustained if he's running a full schedule on the Truck Series grind every weekend instead of just coming in a few times a year. I would love to see that happen.
I tell you one thing, you'd see Craftsman Truck Series tickets explode.
Yeah. Yeah.
Goodness gracious. I mean, that would be must-see events every part of the year.
Which, again, just going back to what I was saying at the start of this segment here, if you're going to do it, go all in, run as many races as you can or run the full schedule. Like, and I still remember, like, even as a kid, like the 2010, 2011 offseason, hearing like drivers are going to have to choose which series they're running for points. And I remember thinking to myself, well, like, I don't know, is Carl Edwards going to choose, you know, it's probably silly of me to be thinking this, of course, but would Carl Edwards choose to keep running nationwide? Because now he's basically going to have a free ticket to a championship if he's the only Cup driver doing this. Or would Kyle Busch, you know, choose to do it? And I think Joe Nemechek even did. I think Nemechek declared for nationwide points because his Cup team was a start and park operation at the time. So it made more sense for him to run the full nationwide races and tally up. I mean, not that he was a championship contender necessarily, but, you know, see where he could rank in Xfinity points over, you know, running 40th every week, just starting parking his Cup car. So, you know, again, I think there's obviously a lot of layers to that discussion as well. I still think it should be score points in Cup or score points in both Xfinity or trucks, because that would prevent a Ross Chastain 2019 situation where you have to choose and then you ultimately realize I've chosen the wrong one and you have to change your declaration. And that was a whole mess. And people were saying mixed feelings about that. But again, you know, it's a conversation as old as time. I think we can leave it there for now, but it does come up by default on weekends like this when you have, and that was the other, just to put a bow on this conversation here. Kyle, my man, if you're going to do this, can you at least pull off the weekend sweep? Like, you came up one spot short in the truck race. If you're gonna stink up the show, at least do what you set out to do. This is twice now, and he's taken 2 out of 3 and just missed out on one of them. And I would tip my cap to him a little bit if he had gotten that achievement of being only the second driver ever to do it. But when he takes 2 out of 3, it's just like, well, man, you didn't even accomplish what you were really trying to go after this weekend. You got the hardest one, which is the Cup Series, and yet could only take 1 out of 2 between Xfinity and trucks. I don't know. That leaves me with mixed feelings as well.